what an incredible joy it's been for me. I just want to say thank you and how inspiring and brilliant and creative this series of conversations has been. And it really has just been a series of us talking as friends now, good friends now, who are really working hard together and diving in so deeply, which I know people are appreciating because you and I have gotten so many listens and so many downloads. I mean, the stats on it are really, really good, which we're thrilled about. And then we've each gotten a lot of people reaching out to us to say, hey, I feel the same, or I'm so glad to hear these things, or here's where I am and what I'm doing, and can we stay in touch? It's just a wonderful connectivity location. So I am so thankful, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I have a couple quick comments before we dive into the episodes and sort of talk about some of our ideas. I listen to them and I look at myself and I make sure I'm checking my personality. I think sometimes I talked too long on a few things, and sometimes I came off a little snobby, which I really don't mean to be because I really want to be open and kind and hold space for people. And I really want to be approachable above all else so that everyone is comfortable with me. But I want to say that I think that this kind of the strictness or strongness of some of my statements is because I'm such a fan of the system, the Temple of the Mother, as it has been developed today. And we can say developed by more than one person, not just Maxine, by her coven, by a group, and by all the Temple of the Mother covens that still work the system. They've all had insights and development. They've made connections with the interplane teachers, with the gods, and are now actually being taught directly from the inner planes, not just from humans. And you can see that that has really happened. And in other good occult orders, the contacts are made, and then the contacts and teachers are in the mind of the students. That's when it really gets extraordinary, I think. But so that's happened, and it's definitely happening for us. And I just want to say how serious I am about the tradition, how impressed I am with it, and I really want to promote it. It is a wonderful place and home for many people who would like to practice the occult arts and find a witchcraft tradition that fits them, fits their lifestyle, their personality, and one that has lineage and heredity behind it and is solidly developed. So maybe I'm a little strong sometimes, but that's because I'm really serious about this. And I'm excited to talk about the episodes with you today, Kerrigan.
Remember you in this other podcast that you did, and many people do remember you on that podcast. And it was lovely to hear you, and it was always lovely to have you in our own little screens, in our own little computers, and sometimes in bigger computers and bigger screens. And we all had followed you for a long time. For those who are listening to us, we're really kind of developing a mutual respect and admiration society right over here. And we're founding it because I really love you. And I think that you are an extraordinary high priestess, and you have an enormous amount of knowledge that is really beyond anyone's that I ever met before. It was a really connection of the heart. We had a connection of the heart right instantly when we met each other for the first time, and it was absolutely fantastic. And this has been a pleasure to do. I mean, this whole season has been, and you were right. We sometimes didn't plan a lot to do things, but we don't need to really, because we really do feed on each other. We have this wonderful flow going, and you can hear it. We don't have to say anything. You can actually hear it. Having somebody that partners with you, that has this wonderful magical connection, it really is something special. So thank you for that. That was really lovely. This is the 13th episode, and this episode, we're going to reflect about the things that we had said in previous episodes during this whole season. We are already planning season 2, but the season 2 is going to be a little bit different. So this season 1 was about our own personal experiences, our own personal contributions in the Alexander tradition. We had done this work for years. So we just thought that it was a good idea to share our own honest and truthful experience about the tradition that we went through in our own covens, in our own practice. Next season, we're going to delve in the history of witchcraft. We're going to talk about different types of witchcraft. We're going to talk about history. And for those of you who really think that maybe you know everything about this or that, maybe this is an interesting thing to hear, because we are going to delve deep into the history of witchcraft in all of the diverse kinds of witchcraft there are the traditions there are. It's going to be interesting journey as well, and one that I always am very, very proud to be with you in the same exact boat, riding this flow and this river of knowledge. And we're going to do that. So for now, I think that we are going to talk about a little bit about the things that we said in previous episodes. So we're reflecting a little bit on the season 1 of this particular podcast, The Alexandrian. You said in one of the episodes, and one of the things that I think that you should expand a little bit about it, is that in ritual, I think what's great about a good magical initiation is you're opening a room in your own soul, in your own psychic mind, that creates space to hold the gods. This, for me, summarizes everything that is an initiation, really. And I think that it's a very good picture of what that is. Do you still hold this?
Absolutely. And really, when you think about what is occultism in general, it is a system of philosophies and actions that cause change in the individual. So what does that mean, to cause change in the individual? It's not just some sort of intellectual knowing, although that is included. The human is a complex being. We have a physical body, we have an intellect, an emotional response system, and we both agree we have a spiritual aspect, which we are going to say is our soul. And that's certainly defined in many different ways by different cultures, but let's just use that word. So the soul is the eternal aspect that maybe is the drop of Godhead, or the one drop of life that comes down into each individual being and animates it for its lifetime. And I believe the soul drop is connected to the entire multiverse, and that we have the ability. And that's why humans can climb the ladder, so to speak, and ascend the tree of life and understand the 4 worlds, which are the layered, interpenetrating, energetic levels of the cosmos. And in fact, our own bodies exist in that same structure. So the religion does the same. If it's a well executed religious ritual, we are going to, and in the occult world, it's same idea. It is a well executed and learned ritual with patterns and words and practices that are designed over time so that we have experiment and do better and experiment and do better. These are long-standing systems. They're not brand new. So that they do something to the human body and mind and soul and heart. They have to. If they don't, it's just flat. Like we've said, it's pancake, it's paper doll. It doesn't have enough substance there. And as one of my lines is, it has to have enough meat on the bone. But so what happens in a good initiation? And that means really strongly trained initiators who understand why this pattern works. It is an energy action. You are manipulating the chakras, you are manipulating the aura of the initiate, and you are causing the opportunity for them to respond. And for me, it was opening more rooms that could be inhabited by this Alexandrian energy. So
Very
yes,
good.
critical. And you'll feel it if it's either, you're with experienced practitioners or not. And there's plenty of fake ritual. All right, Kerrigan, this is on coven development. Out of the experience comes the opportunity to actually exercise that. Learnings are very spontaneous. That's the flow between the teacher and student. But that's also where the gods come in and begin to work through the priesthood.
Learning is a very spontaneous thing. Every student has their own level. So you will have to ride that level with them and hopefully call their consciousness to a higher level. And then they will follow that tide as well. And that's how the learning is done. You really point out consciously where they need to go, and then they will follow. And people think that learning is linear, that you just have, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's it. No, it really can't be that. I have been a teacher for many, many years. And me too. I was there. I had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here it is, and standardized. It never actually works that way. And I've learned that very in my teaching years. And you have to understand as well that the spontaneity of learning comes with the learning sometimes has a moment. So it isn't learning all the time the same thing and the same exact way. Sometimes you have to have an opportunity to actually learn what you have to learn. And that was taught to me by Maxine. There are certain things that you will learn in different ways, in different places in your own life. And there are moments where you need that teaching. Sometimes people say, I'm an Alexander, I need to know everything that there is in the training. Well, not really, because your level will be assessed by the teacher and guided by them, but also because you don't need that teaching right now, you will need it later on. And that is when the moment is right. So that's what I thought about learning is very spontaneous when I said that. It is out of the experience comes the opportunity to actually exercise that. Out of your experience comes the moment that you need to know.
And another one of your quotes, the biggest teachers are the first degrees because it is a two-way street. Their openness and eagerness and the things they don't know cause these questions that trigger something in the teacher that responds differently with every person. It's not always the same. We're responding individually to the students, and they're triggering something in us as teachers spontaneously.
I am going through the exact moment of this with one of, it's actually a neophyte. It's not even an initiate. And the way that people look at things from the outside is even more interesting because they have no, and I like the neophyte that doesn't have a pre-constructed idea. They are totally not aware of anything that has come before, but they are fascinated by and really have this sincere vocation. And that makes them ask all of these questions and making you think about levels of things that you have not even revisited, perhaps even before you were initiated, because that's what they are. That's where they are. Once you begin to really learn a lot of things and read a lot of books, then you have some preconception ideas about this or that because you know what's correct and what's not. That comes to play as well. Oh, this is correct. That's not correct because I read that this is not this and that. And that really clouds your mind on the spontaneity of your own expression of your own self. For me, it's an enormous pleasure to teach people that have no background whatsoever. And they're just so sincere and they're just so open to this tradition is that it really brings you to the questions that they bring to you, open up places in yourself that you probably already forgot that you had.
I wonder if it would, I'm sure it would have been very different for me if I entered into the Alexandrian tradition completely untrained in the occult because it was the exact opposite for me. I'd been working in occult philosophy and ritual magic and practices for 35 years before I became an Alexandrian. So I had a really big structure in my brain already about the cosmos and perennial wisdom and hermetic knowledge and Kabbalah and astrology and all that. So that would be interesting to think about, to find it without it completely fresh with no occult training. And I agree that your questions would be so wide open and so different.
This is what a good neophyte that has no training whatsoever, that has no knowledge whatsoever about those things brings to you. Because although now you are already a high priestess and you had that experience because you came to the craft with all that knowledge, these neophytes that had no knowledge whatsoever, they bring you these questions that makes you visit those places where you have never been before because you weren't that. You
Mhm.
weren't like them. You already brought in a lot of other things and a lot of other knowledge, which is absolutely fantastic. But this is such a pleasure to have these people coming in and take you to their place, to where they are. This is why I like to do the whole thing about the Socratic method, because I think that it's really it creates a space for this. And I think that it's a wonderful thing. And I really like it and has served me for years and years and years of training. It's a very good place to be.
Well, if you're not
Now,
willing to exercise your own mind, thinking is hard work. And nowadays, people don't want to do it. They want to just be spoon fed videos. Okay, that's interesting. But if you can't learn to use your own mind and your own thinking mechanisms, you're not really going to learn anything very complexly. The Socratic method insists on the question is turned back to the seeker, right? You have to think it out and come up with some things yourself before the teacher will start talking back.
that's right. Yes. So another thing that I wanted to recalling the sacred tree in Lisbon, which was one of the most magical things that happened to me in the last 10 years, really. It was really an incredible experience that I had the pleasure to share with you in Lisbon. And this is, you said that tree was part of the universal witchcraft current, you said. Every land has its genius loci, and
Uh-huh.
it plants spirits and its ancestors, and it's, honoring the dead. So what do you remember really about this experience, which was a moment in the
Well,
middle of a very busy city?
I felt that, first of all, that tree location was a time warp. You and I went backwards in lifetimes. How many minutes were we there really? Like 3? I mean, we
Three,
saw the tree and
three.
we ran up to
Yeah.
the tree and we hugged the tree and we realized the world was going on around us, but all of a sudden we were both right together, right with our hands on that tree, and we were facing each other, and there was this time tunnel. We could see backwards into the land of Lisbon without all the structure. I think we felt the ancient roots and ley lines and energy there, and we seemed to recognize each other from that far back. Then we moved back up into the current situation with the tree, and the world had grown up around it. It was on a sidewalk. It was a massive thing and such an unusual tree, but the buildings were right next to it and the cars would drive right by it. And then we kind of teleported into the future where we could see each other, continuing to know each other, work together, and almost like we have this agreement that, like in the Rosicrucian philosophy, once a year, there's a secret location where everyone agrees to meet up again. Like, we can probably begin to use that tree astrally. Kerrigan, this is a great idea, where we each go to the tree at a certain time and we'll be connected. Did you feel
This
that way?
is
There
a
was a time leap for us there? It was out of time, like we came to again, almost like we'd been in so many different worlds together.
This is for our listeners that are with us. This is something that you have the pleasure to have this high priestess with you and an experienced one. And of course, you want to do the mundane courtesies and you want to take the priestess to all of these places that you know, the best views, and you take her to these magical places as well. But these are just logistics of the mundane world. And very rarely there is a moment that is created in time that comes together in one particular place. This was the time and this was the place. It is, and people might think that we're talking about this and how wonderful it was. Well, good for you. All of those things. Thank you very much. But this was really special. And I thought that that doesn't happen often. I had many visitors. I had many people coming here. I had many things happening during trips and coincidences and very, very wonderful and cherished moments that I had with wonderful high priesthood that we received here, but nothing actually this significant in terms of, and we must say, we really had met before, but very briefly, and this was not really. I really didn't. We didn't really spend time with each other. Let's just say. And when you came and all of the magic, and this is, we must say this to people as well so that they can understand what this is. We walked up, and for you to, there are all of our listeners, Lisbon has 7 hills. 7 hills, just the number 7, it's very magical. And I took Ellie to this really special place, which is a neighborhood in Lisbon, which is one of the hills, and it's called Alfama. Now, Alfama is a place in Lisbon that it's very magical. Arab in origin, that was the place where the Arabs would live, and that's why it's called Alfama. And we went through it really, so it was almost like entering this magical place, go through it, and at the end of it, coming down that hill, that tree was there. So it was almost like this whole thing happened through. And we have been, I mean, we didn't really talk about anything but magic while we were in this walk. We had a wonderful, beautiful lunch in this restaurant that is overlooking Lisbon and the River Tagus and its mysteries of all of those years of discoveries and all of those navigators that discovered all of these new worlds and all of these things. And it was such a magical place to be at the time. And I think that we began to have this journey, this magical journey, talking about magic, experiencing the land, experiencing the energy, and go forth and talking about magic. We didn't stop talking about magic while we were doing this. And then we just came to the tree. And I think that was the culmination. So I just wanted to explain to people what happened before, because I think that it's important for them to have some kind of context about this whole thing.
But it was kind of the universe talking back to us. And saying your synchronicity is perfect. And for me it was like a vow. We recognized ourselves in an ancient time as friends, at least friends, maybe something more, working priesthood or lovers or whatever it was. And then we recognized ourselves at that moment and sort of reestablished the vow. And then we projected ourselves into the future and said we'll pick back up. This life won't be the only one. And it was really powerful. And we were out of time and out of place in that moment. And yeah, I think it was the universe talking back and the gods talking back that say, we hear you and see you, and we want to validate what you guys are doing on the ground. I felt that way, very validated. But you must have seen that tree before. You've been in that neighborhood a lot, and you take
I
people around.
have.
So
I
it
have.
never
Yes.
seen the tree. You'd seen the tree. I had
Yes.
never
I
seen
have.
that.
I have seen that tree. But here's the thing. And of course, that tree is in the middle of the sidewalk. So it's
Uh-huh.
really nothing that you can miss while you go through. And it's actually on the way to a very famous viewpoint. So in
Mhm.
Lisbon. So it's really something that you can't really overlook. You come out of the Baixa, which is the downtown. And then when you go up, you have to go through that tree. There's no way that you can go to that particular viewpoint without going through that tree or by that tree. And that doesn't matter, because if you don't have the right person with you, nothing happens. Nothing happens. It's just a tree. When you have the right person with you, then things happen. And that's what happened, I think. Yes.
Activation,
Activation. Yeah.
magical
Yeah.
activation happened.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we can make it a goal that hopefully we can keep experimenting together with these kinds of activations so that we can have them in other places. And then we can start charting them a little bit so we can teach other people or show other people how to have activation. I know you've had it in probably many times in your life. And I've had it in other situations also where I had an activation. I'll tell you a real simple one. was in England in right after March 21st, and the next morning I was at Stonehenge, and I had to go. My mother's friend who was from there, lived in England, was often our tour guide, and he was a retired British heritage teacher. So his retirement job was to take white ladies from the U.S. to all the places. So he took us to Stonehenge and got private viewing tickets. We had to be on the site at 6 a.m. and so that we could get in and see it. And there are guards there. It's not like you just get to climb all over it, and then leave before the buses of tour people come so that they don't think that some people got to touch the stones and be actually in the circle. Because sometimes it is open for the public, but this was a private event. And when we got there, it's freezing cold. It's wet. March in England is still really freezing. The two guards sleep in a hut on the site overnight. So there's day guards and night guards. So it's me, my mother, my best friend, our two children, and my cousin. We're all the people that are on this little tour with Roger, our guide. And out of the blue, one of the guards walks up to me and he says, "I'm Michael, and I've grew up here and I played here as a boy. Do you mind if I show you some extra things?" And I said, "Michael, my name is Ellie Barnes. I'd be honored to." I'll just start crying. Oh my God. "I'd be honored to walk around the stones with you." And we walked in a pattern. And then he took me behind a stone and he said, "Now feel this energy." And then he took me to another one and he said, "Do you feel the difference?" And I said, "Oh my God, yes, it's so interesting." He said, "This was one of the pathways." He said, and I could see he did use the word druids. And his joke was, I never met a druid I didn't like, because those are the people that use Stonehenge a lot today. But we know from anthropology and archaeology, the druids did not build them. They were there when the druids arrived, so they used them. But that was another one of those activations. I didn't know this man. I'd never been to Stonehenge. All of a sudden, time and space fall away, and it's just the two of us. And he is showing me the energy circuit of that monument and the ground beneath our feet and how the stones transmit the ley lines and move it up so that you can feel it through your entire body. And then that whole grid goes up into the heavens where it is in alignment with the sun and the moon and the stars. And all in 10 minutes. Finally, my friend comes to get me and says, "Ellie, what are you doing back here?" And I'm like, "I'm having a transcendent experience with this guard named Michael."
Thank you very much.
Right?
Yeah.
But, until you really see something like that yourself, you
Yeah.
don't know what you're talking about. But I had another one like that at the Rollright Stones and in Egypt. Oh my God, you can't believe the kinds of things you have there. And it's weird. This is what Madame Blavatsky said about the secret chiefs. She's just sitting on her sofa and all of a sudden some guy in a turban shows up and takes her to another realm. But it's really out of space and time, isn't it? And it is very profound, and it is an activation magically and energetically between people and an energy current. I guess we could call it an energy current, right? I mean, that tree was its own energy field.
I think that the best kept secret of Europe is really Portugal. You also said, John Fortune says, magic is the art of changing consciousness at will. And this was on the nature of magic. And he said, I like the Unfortunate. I do like the Unfortunate as well. I think that she was really a genius on what she did and at that time. And then you said, I think she's advanced a bit. I think that she advanced a lot. I mean, really, because she was just a wonderful, magical, central, I
Well,
don't even
she
know what
was
to call it.
channeling psychic from
Yes.
childhood. No, I think
Yeah.
you are too, actually. You're a great psychic, and I'm a great psychic. And I think that that was part of it, was that our psychic muscle was so strong. We could easily open up channels and doorways and corridors into these. Going in those old churches, you and I could see it all psychically. Like we had so much Knights Templar stuff coming in all the time. We were talking about it constantly. You know it more than I do because it's your history of your town, but we could see them on. Remember the first things I said? The day I got there, we have a little food. We all go to bed so Ellie can get re-regulated. And I wake up and I say to Jamal, "Do you know how many tunnels are under your house that go over there to that tower? And then the tunnels that go to the church? And do you see all these knights on horseback that are holding somebody else's head or arm or leg in their hand?" And I'm just thinking, I'm going nuts here. What have I gotten myself into with these people? And then Jamal looks at me kind of wide eyed and he said, well, yes, there are tunnels under our house and they do go to these two places. And when the knights' graves were dug up and desecrated, they got all their body parts moved around and pulled apart. And so it's not surprising that they're holding somebody else's leg or arm. I mean, that just doesn't happen to people either, but I think we just triggered an opening for each other. But it's a good message to the seeker, to the person who's looking. We're not really on our high horse here. We really want to say this is real and true. And in the best of the occult work and in the best of religious work, you are seeking a transcendent experience, yourself with spirit, with Godhead, yourself with the land, and yourself with other humans. And it is what you should aspire to. And if you find yourself with other people, other practitioners and worshipers who also know that and are striving for that kind of experience, count your blessings, because it is true. Many people in the occult arts and clubs and groups and cults and orders don't know that. They don't do it. They just don't have enough experience in it. And they've created a beautiful world, but they don't have that full experience. And so try to seek that, try to look for that. When you find it, stay with those people. Dion Fortune, I've been to her grave. I have photographs of me at her grave. She's Mary Violet Firth on her tombstone, not Dion Fortune. But that was after I was in Glastonbury for a week. And that was another experience. She's buried very remotely in a small little cemetery a few miles away from Glastonbury, and nobody knew where the grave was. And so I had to hunt and find, and finally, some little old man says, well, I know the man that used to take care of that cemetery. Let me see if I can find him. So later that afternoon, that man comes to our little hotel, knocks on the door and says, I found the old man. We can take you to the graveyard. So I tell my mother, okay, see you later. Good luck. I'll be back in a while. And they take me. They take me in his little car and we all get out and we go and I got on the ground and cried and prayed. It was beautiful to see that. So I would have gotten there. I probably wouldn't have gotten there if this little old weird cemetery guy hadn't been willing to take me. But yeah, I think she's brilliant. Now, people criticize her for being potentially racist, or she believed in sort of the human race didn't all come here at once. She had some theosophical ideas. She was a theosophist also. But you have to put people in their time period and culture. No one has perfect political commentary in any lifetime, I don't think. You have to get above that a little bit. And also not criticize Kerrigan and Ellie for some of their statements. Maybe we are talking in our own time, in our own place. But we're doing our very best to be real and authentic and honest. I also love about our conversations that we showed our vulnerability.
That is very important, I think, because I think that we all do have them. And if people don't really hear that, I don't think that it's honest, because I think that you need to say, okay, so this is something that I said, that I think that this is what I did and I shouldn't have done it, or that I have um, gone through and I shouldn't have done that. And we all made mistakes and we all have an evolving to do. And that's very important to show up our listeners, because I think that first of all, we're human. Second of all, we're a priesthood. So we're trying our best. We're trying our best to be the best that we can be.
I want to ask you and dig into the idea of power. It's something I do want to talk to you more about just on our own communications, but I think I had some trouble with owning power. Maybe just because I'm a Southern woman and, I'm raised in a culture that says women take care of things, they fix the food, they say yes, they do, they're people pleasing. So your two quotes on polarity and the third degree, this is what episode that was. It's about, I'm going to say the two quotes. It's about the recognition of self-power, of our own power, and how you recognize that, how you measure that, and then how you wield that. Then the second quote, you have to recognize first your power. And then after you recognize your power, you need to own it. Tell me more about what you mean by power and the process of recognizing it, internalizing it, owning it, and wielding it.
So power is a very strange word, because you are referring to sometimes different things when you use that word. And that's why it's very tricky. When we use the word power in the craft, we're obviously talking about energy and of course that power. But that is not even sufficient to distinguish what we are actually referring to when we're talking about it in the craft itself. So when we're talking about the power, that could be power that is raised within the circle, that we actually, as witches, we would raise that power, or we can be talking about the power that it's a very old power, the current of witchcraft, for instance, which is another power. So we have a couple of ways of looking at power and what power means. That particular instance, I think that I was talking about personal power and how that can be achieved if you are going to yield some power, meaning if you're going to use your personal power, then you'll have to acknowledge that you actually have it, that you are yielding, sending it forth. And that has to be owned. You have to own it in order for it to be real to you, because it can't be real out of you if you do not have the belief that that power is yours and that you have it. So that's what I meant by that. And this is nothing that is new. You have this in traditional witchcraft as well. You have all of this conversation about the power and what power is. Some people do have it. Some people don't have it. For me, the reason why they don't, it's not that they don't have it, it's that they don't believe they do.
I think I wanted also, and I've learned from you to separate it from ego. It's not, it has nothing, the two aren't really overlapping. I mean, they can be, and a lot of people who feel powerful are also very egotistical. But I think I was maybe hindered a bit because of me always trying to watch my own ego and be very observant. So to own my own power more is a little easier now because I can see it's not about my ego, it's about an energy tool that I have it and I'm using it better, I believe, and then more confidence in it without worrying that it's necessarily affecting how I show up in my ego. So I think that's really been really good for me and useful. And yeah, it's like a kung fu master with a few new moves.
That's true. I mean, power can be interpreted as that as well. Sometimes people call power what is actually talked about as leverage, or in terms of the interactions that people have with other people, and that is power. So it's political power. We're talking about political power. And of course, we have that in the craft as well. There are people who are a little bit more political than others, and that's their nature. That's where they are, and it's their own level of existence, and that's totally fine. But what I'm talking and more interested about is the power of the circle and the power that we create within the circle. That to me is more important than anything else. This was one of the most important lessons that I ever had from Maxine Sanders, and it is what really is important is what happens in your own circle, and that's all.
Well, ultimately, that's your experience in reality. You can't be in two circles at once, and you can't be in two covens at once. You're not supposed to. So, if you're constantly focused on someone else's power or someone else's work or circle, you're not spending enough time in your own circle doing your own power. I mean, it all boils down to your personal experience in your life. I don't pay attention to what other people are doing because it's not nearly as interesting as what I'm doing in my life. So most of the days I wake up super excited to get back to my work and my projects and my practice because it's fascinating to me. I don't want to spend time looking at what other people are doing unless it's someone that I really, really love and admire, like you. And, I do have my handful of very special people that I love to see and love to spend time with and I love to talk to. Of course, I do. But nothing replaces your own work.
Priesthood, priests, and priestesses, what does it mean? It's a pillar of society. You're a role model. You establish yourself as a servant of the gods. And that is really important because that's one of the roles that we do have. And when people should look at this. They should look at this. They should look at behavior. They should look at all of those things. It's important for them to look at these because, of course, we are human beings. We do walk the world. It's not that we're isolated from everybody else. And of course, that is something that you will have to look at. There's no other way to say this. You do have to look at those behaviors and those people. So when we talk about this, we have to talk about how do we want people to perceive us. Not that it's very important, but because it is important in terms of they will see how we react or how we conduct ourselves in the world. One of the things that I teach my students is the three pillars of the Alexandrian tradition, which is freedom, power, and beauty. One of them is beauty. And beauty to me is very, very important. Not because, and people are the first ones to actually dismiss beauty because they think that power is more important. And of course, freedom is also more important than anything else. But the beauty for me, it really is, it carries a lot of importance. And the reason why it's because it is how people do their work, how they manifest themselves in the world. Not in magic, not in their covens, but in the world. So what do you think about that?
Well, how beautiful is their life? How beautiful is their life? You can see people and that you say, "What a beautiful life." In my case, it's very specialized because my profession is a psychic and medium, and I do this every day, and I have clients from all over the world. So, how priesthood has added so much to this for me is that I can carry myself with more authority and more power. I'm holding their little soul in my hands when I'm talking to them and reading for them, and you have to meet them where they are and then look at the big picture psychically and see all the different components that cause them to arrive where they are today. And honestly, they come to me with the most open minds and hearts, a lot of them very desperate or upset or going through a very difficult time. If I weren't a really beautiful and excellent priestess, I couldn't deliver what I do for my clients. But more importantly for that, not that I just want to be good at it. I'm very good at it and it shows by my level of busyness with people. I'm highly sought after, not to be egotistical, and I'm booked up every day and I have a waiting list of people that want to spend time with me. But if I didn't focus on my priestesshood, it wouldn't be as good. It allows me to make a beautiful life, carry myself with much more seriousness, take the work I do very seriously, have a lot of honor for it all the time. I mean, before every reading, before every conversation with you, I stop for a moment, breathe, and check in with my ego and my energy body and my higher self. And I say, engage the highest and best that I can give in this moment right now. So must it be. Blessed be, and really show up that way as a priestess, a functioning priestess. So it's kind of an odd job and a rare mix there. But imagine if we all showed up at our jobs as a priest or priestess with that much integrity and that much seriousness about it. All walks of life, our friendships, the way we treat others in public, saying hello to the waitress, picking up litter, being kind to animals, consciousness, respecting the world around us, noticing what's going on in the environment. This to me is all good priesthood, super important. And the tradition does teach it. It does have it as a major goal. I think people get lost on that and they're more interested in the trappings of the cult, the religion. Ultimately, it is the beauty of the priesthood. I think, yeah.
One of the things that we talked about was about the tools that we use in order for us to attain this level of consciousness or to enhance the level of consciousness within the circle. And that's hermetics. And we talked a little bit about it. You said mind is the field, the infinite field that maybe all reality really rests in, the mind of God.
Well, it's just back from metaphysics in my philosophy degree. What is ultimate reality? Is it real? Is it Descartes? I think, therefore I am. Or is it an illusion and it is all a TV show in the mind of God? Are we real? Do we have agency? Is our physical body real? What is the ultimate source? So I think most people today, especially with physics knowledge, we could say energy. Okay, we can say that the field, I call it the infinite field, is energy. Okay, can we describe that a little bit more? Mind. And a lot of us arrive at mind and love. And that's not just human emotional love. It's a lot different, a giant kind of, it's not even a feeling, but it is maybe a intention that everything worked together and that everything is beneficial for everything else. And in the infinite field, I mean, my basic take on it is that the infinite field, that the truth of the structure is the one mind. It chose to differentiate itself into the many so that it could have a grander experience of itself. And then in those reflections back and forth of the many to each other, the one infinite field is informed more fully about its sure. This is the philosophy I follow. It's very Kabbalistic and Neoplatonic. It's also Gnostic. It also would say that every individual part of the infinite field does participate, is God. I am God. That was a big movement in the 70s, right? I am God. God is in me. I was going to talk about that too. Christianity kind of posited that God is outside of us, external to us. It sits on the throne and looks down upon the creation, judges and manipulates, but God is not indwelling. Jesus was the indwelling mechanism, right? That brought spirit down to matter and is supposed to elevate mankind back up to God. But I think that's not necessary. I think each individual can choose to meditate and study their own energy field and their own nature and recognize that we are fully enmeshed in the mind of God, and that once we can work on our perception, that gets stronger and better and stronger, and then we can use that muscle more. And we find really through practicing that as a meditation and then as kind of a living, walking meditation, your world opens up infinitely into the most magnificent, interesting, creative, beautiful, surprising life. Not that it's not without hardship. Of course it is, because we're in the material world. But something shifts. Everything becomes glistening and gold and brilliant and exciting. And so I want to live in the field of the mind of God. I want to.